Hello, everybody. I am one of your hosts, Scott, coming to you again from my home office, home studio in Toronto.
And I'm Andy, coming to you from the United Kingdom, as always. There was a bit of fuzz on the intro music there, so if anyone else heard that, then we do apologise. We do try and give you the best quality sound, so if that hasn't come through today, trust us, the rest of the show is going to be fantastic.
Oh, yes. We work with what we have, and we just keep moving on. This is the T and Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. This is a new month, Andy. Happy spring. And we did a theme of spring cleaning back in March.
Indeed,
Hopefully
we did.
You've all decluttered and you're ready with fresh minds, and we're going to turn the corner into April here and think about, again, sort of new beginnings and how we can find some growth in this month. We're going to talk about prospecting for the whole month. That top of funnel stuff that can often be somewhat elusive, and it always feels that way anyway when it's not popping. We're going to talk about prospecting tactics. And before we do that, Andy, do you have any thoughts and stories to share with us today?
I do, actually. This is a relatively topical story, and it's relevant right now, and the underlying subject matter is top of mind for some people. But I've been recently working with a record producing, so vinyl record producing company, and their partner record label. This is very confusing with the word records, because to me a vinyl is a record, but then a record label don't always produce their own records now. So yeah, anyway, I was working with a record company in the US and a vinyl producer in Canada, and the cost of the vinyl from Canada to this company in the US has suddenly changed recently due to some other things that the news will tell you all about.
We can say the word tariff. It's okay.
We can say the word tariff. Yeah. Anyway, their prices have increased by, I believe it's 25% over the last month or so, and this, of course, has had an impact on their ability to cost effectively launch albums and vinyl, distribute vinyl to their customers. So it's had an impact on the US business, as well as it's having an impact on the Canadian business, who have had to reduce their amount of sales that they're actually making, and so the knock-on effect is negative for both parts. And this isn't me trying to push oh, look at those tariffs, aren't they bad kind of story, but I'm just explaining that this has had an impact recently on the people I'm working with. And so what the American record label have tried to do is they thought, oh, okay, well, we'll try and source them from elsewhere, but the tariffs have affected other countries as well, which has made it slightly more difficult. The tariffs, I believe, are lower for imports from China, but the quality of the vinyl was not good from there, and the cost of shipping was not good either.
Right.
So what they've done is they've now started working with a vinyl producer here in the UK, who has decided to, through a bit of work that I'm doing, form a partnership with the Canadian vinyl manufacturer, so that they can, in a kind of sneaky way, circumvent the tariffs, and also expand their market into the UK, as well as increasing what's going on in the US. Now, naturally, what we've had to do is focus more on the digital distribution, digital launches, and launch events and things instead. But kind of the point I'm trying to make is that it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter that there's these tariffs in place. It does matter that these are having an impact on everybody, but there are ways around it. There are alternative ways to try and solve these problems. You're not going to solve them 100%, but there are other ways of making it work. And in the particular world that I'm working with in the music industry, this has been one way around it, and it has actually, like I say, in this particular scenario, increase their market for this Canadian vinyl manufacturer because they've now got a bigger footprint in the UK than they had before. So what they're losing with the US directly, they're gaining in other markets in the UK and hopefully over the next few months in Europe as well. It's my point really is that it's been valuable to relook at the market and the market opportunities as a result of the tariffs. And I know it was something that we were going to potentially talk about, and we've decided not to because it is a bit of a tough, hot topic at the moment. But it did make me think of this particular story that I should be telling it now because it's so relevant to what's going on. And there are business opportunities as a result of it, even if those aren't directly obvious at the beginning.
Well, I think it's a freaking fiasco, and I think it's silly, and I think completely.
I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that.
And, I'm all for expanding into other markets, and perhaps it's a catalyst that will pay longer term benefits. But it's wholesomely unnecessary. So. But thank you for sharing the story, Andy. Let's get into our topic about doing some prospecting, and you may be more motivated given tariff situations and other market forces to reconsider how you're doing your prospecting. We want to spend sort of the month talking about this so that we really give our audience sort of some really concrete specifics and actionable ideas and plans for executing on some of these tips. But let's spend today just establishing what our list is going to be that we're going to talk about. And I think even the mention of some of these things is going to get people kind of, ruminating on how they can add it into what they do. So, we did our lists independently, and I'm interested to see how much overlap there is and how much agreement we have.
Yeah, we may end up with a list of 20 in the end.
Or I'm curious if we end up with a list of 20 or if we have the same.
Yeah.
And it's complete overlap.
I mean, when we've done these things before, we've very often had similar things, but from a slightly different wording or slightly different perspective, but meaning the same things. Yep. But if we can end up coming up with 20 tips of prospecting, then that's not a bad thing either. So, the more the merrier, I say.
And I suppose I should write these down as we go so that we remember what to talk about on our.
Well, I think if you remember, we are recording this because it's a podcast, so you don't need to write them down.
You have to go back and listen to me.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Would you like to tell me what is the first thing on your list of prospecting tactics?
Well, and just to clarify, we're only going like headlines for this one, for this episode. Okay, yeah.
Details, we're going headlines. We'll debate and discuss, and then see where time allows. Maybe we can get into specifics.
Then I'll do my first three.
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So, number one, leveraging warm introductions.
Okay.
Number two, conducting data-driven research.
Okay.
And number three, adopting thought leadership strategies.
Okay. I am going to say that I also had something related to leveraging warm introductions, which I wrote down as referrals.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah. I've written the word asking existing clients, colleagues, and industry contacts for referrals in the body of that one. So
okay.
Yeah,
we're on the same page. Conducting data-driven research, Andy. That's not prospecting.
Well, if you don't do that, then it's where do you start with your prospecting?
That's market research. That's understanding. How I should focus my efforts. That's convince me is that worthy of staying on the list?
It's an essential part of the prospecting process, because I mean, what you don't want to be doing is just opening up a phone book. Oh God, how old am I? You don't want to just be going to an industry dialogue, or Googling online, manufacturers of ABC products in my area.
Okay, I'm going to put a yellow flag
that's
beside
not logical. So, but before you start any prospecting activity, and I suppose you can get stuck in the preparation and so on. But I think if you're smart about it and you use advanced analytics and other market intelligence software and information that's available, you will then know and be able to plan your prospecting much better. But I see where you're coming from, but I also believe that that's an important part of the prospecting process.
So, yeah, we'll leave it on there. Maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll reorganize the list and come up with the order in which we tackle these things in future episodes, so they sort of layer into each other. Because yes, I agree it's a fundamental thing, but I disagree that it's a prospecting activity.
Fair enough.
Adopting thought leadership strategies. I also had thought leadership down specifically. Okay. There's a light yellow flag there. I mean, on its own, it's not a prospecting activity. You again sort of have to lay the groundwork, but I did have it on my list with a little bit of an asterisk on my own thing. So, you said leveraging warm introductions. I said I had referrals down. I have something that I consider a different activity, which is intentional networking. That was one of the other ones that I wanted to add on to my list. I think it has a slightly different sort of approach. And then I had two similar but different event strategies. So one is sponsor and attend industry events, and one is host your own.
100% agree. No, I've got both of those.
Okay. All right. So,
well, I've got running webinars and roundtables and lunch and learns and attending and speaking at industry events. So basically the same information, but from a slightly different perspective.
Right. Okay. All right. What else you got?
Well, I've got establishing partnerships, like collaborative partnerships. I think that's an essential activity as well.
Yep.
Utilizing account-based marketing.
Okay. Yes. I did not have that one on my list, but okay, I'll give you one. I had cold calling, which I think is different than like account-based marketing, and I think it's still deserves a place on
100%. It does. Cold calling should be on there. I had targeted email and telephone campaigns.
Okay.
So similar approach.
Interesting. I didn't have email marketing on here. It's different. I see. I prospecting is like you're out there trying to find new conversations to start. I think I saw email kind of in the same category as research. It's like it's a mechanism for delivering your message. It's not unto itself a way to prospect. You would prospect by getting more people onto your email list, but then so it's I think again falls in kind of like a, am I being too semantic about this exercise?
I think and to clarify from where I'm looking at it is that the telephone is still the key tool, but once you've reached out, been successful, unsuccessful, got a voicemail, whatever it is, following up then with a targeted and structured email makes perfect sense.
Right.
And so the email is a complement to the telephone as opposed to instead of.
And I suppose if we're talking about the entire tactic of doing sort of the prospecting, it is part of what you need to put into the engine. And I mean, by that measure, by that definition, yes, your previous point about conducting data-driven research belongs there to sort of prime it and fuel it. I had SEO, search engine optimization.
Okay.
You need some of that organic inbound traffic to make its way to you.
Yeah, I'd gone with that approach, but from a social selling perspective. So I'd put down refined social selling approach.
Okay, so this one it was the first one I wrote down, and then I scratched it off also because I was starting to apply this like filter that I've now created for myself of like, well, is that the medium or the message? Is that channel or the activity? And there are activities that I think you do in social media, but then yes, absolutely, like sort of showing up and dedicating yourself to reaching a new audience, pushing out and getting some organic inbound activity through social. Certainly, I will concede is a valuable way to get new eyeballs on your business. Related to that, but I think it's again different. It belongs in its own lane. Is influencer collaboration, influencer. Outreach. So it's different than like, well, I see partnership as like I have a channel partner, I have a software vendor relationship, I implement this other thing, and together we come together, we partner, we bring something to the market. But an influencer, well, I need them to come in and be a brand ambassador for me and advocate, and there's an exchange of value there. I give money, they give access to their audience. They do that through social media, but not entirely. What else you got?
Well, it's the last one that I had, and that is the follow-up that you have to implement like an efficient follow-up protocol in place to, just essentially, if you're not following up on, on your outreach, then what's the point of doing it?
Right. So it comes more into the nurture sequence, and is that different than email?
It is different. I mean, it's I suppose on the longer term you're part of that nurture sequence, but again, it's whether it's that email or it's another follow-up phone call or whether it's a social media outreach, whatever, or an in-person dropping in and saying hello like we used to do, turning up at people's buildings and saying, hi, I want to talk to John Smith or whatever. And sometimes it works.
Not on the list. Like
I know.
Like door knocking.
Exactly.
I put it in like with cold calling. I don't think it belongs.
Should absolutely be there. I mean, cold calling is the best. Cold calling was driving around the industrial estates, parking up your car, and just walking around and knocking on the doors.
Yeah.
Good old fashioned.
I mean, when we first had our office, you would honestly get the Xerox rep for your neighborhood.
Yeah, just turn up at the building.
And very like the internet service providers are always knocking on the door of the office to drop off their business card and say, you may not want to do this now, but when you're ready, I want you to put this business card on your server rack.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's not nothing. Okay, I have one that we haven't mentioned, and it's the last one on my list. Advertising.
Oh, okay.
So that's 15 items. That's a lot less overlap than I thought we would have.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
So
we're going to need a longer month.
Yeah, I know. We thought we would run out of things to talk about this month. Leveraging warm leveraging warm introductions and referrals. We had conducting data-driven research, which I'm like, maybe that's like a bonus item. Adopting thought leadership strategies, intentional networking, sponsorship and event strategies. Those are two different ones, like going to an event versus hosting your own event. Account-based marketing, cold calling, door knocking, email marketing, SEO, social media, influencer marketing, follow-up and nurturing sequence, and advertising. So maybe, before we record our next episode, we can have a little sidebar on the way to organize the future topics. But I think there's a lot to chew on there, and I'm glad that we identified we can go into more depth over the rest of the month.
Do you know what I think's even more interesting is the fact that I can say most of the companies that I end up working with, they're not doing one of these things. Not one.
What are they
There's
doing?
no structure or plan around the prospecting. Prospecting is something that seems to be totally forgotten. And It shouldn't be.
I'm gonna add one because I was like, well, then how do they get it? And we're missing one here, which is word of mouth, which I think I scribbled it down next to referrals, but I think they're probably two different things. They can be related to each other. You can ask for the word of mouth, or you can just rely on the good quality of work to speak for itself and organically do it for you. A lot of businesses start that way and grow that way, and then they'll plateau if that's all that they do.
Very good. Thank you, Scott.
So
I think we've done very well there. We've got the rest of the month sorted now. Diving into each of those things, but I think as you say, we should put a little bit of structure and try and pool some of those together that are a bit more linked.
And we'll report back on our next episode and see. Everybody can find out how we've digested it all and organized it. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everybody. This is Tea and Timbits. If you would like to debate us, contribute to this list, refute this list, listen to any other episodes, get in touch, or send any comments or criticisms our way, you can do that at teaandtimbits.com. You can find us on LinkedIn. That's where we're the most active as well. Thanks, Andy. Looking forward to the remainder of this month.